Hey everybody, and welcome back to the internet. You ready for a question of the day? That's right, since this channel still seems to have no clear direction, we're gonna have another question of the day, which is, what happened at your work which caused multiple people to all quit at once? Cancelled all raises and bonuses for everyone except the CEO, his wife, financial and HR, and his son, utterly useless IT, in a year where we have record profits and brought in almost double the clients, on top of announcing they aren't looking to hire more people when we were already overwhelmed. Good part about it was when the majority of us quit, they lost almost every single client shortly afterwards to their competitors, and the company is now defunct. So you should never get too cocky, even the biggest fail sometimes. They decided after 6 years it was time to do a drug test, even lost the CEO in that great idea. Wow, so the CEO wasn't even in on the whole drug test thing? I had worked at a grocery store for about 3 years before moving to courtesy clerk, basically bagger plus custodian, to helper clerk, which is stalker. The grocery department wanted to save costs on personnel, but couldn't fire anyone or lay anyone off due to the union. So they started cutting back hours and literally told us, when someone quits, everyone else will get more hours. We were supposed to be 40-hour employees, and they had us at 32 hours. 2 people quit, and we were down to 24 hours. A third person quit, down to 16 hours. I don't know what their plan was, but they didn't give us more hours as people left. Wait, I'm trying to figure out what this is even saying here. So you had less people, and they were all working less, so you just had like nobody even there to work anymore, I guess. Many years ago in high school, I worked at a movie theater. The place was pretty poorly run from the moment I started there. We never got paid on time, and the management was basically a bunch of lazy jackasses who sat in the office talking all day, and never actually did any managing. It would have been hard for things to have gotten any worse, but after a couple months, they brought in new management, who seemed to want to make it their personal mission to run the theater as poorly as possible. They first decided to implement a new policy requiring all projectionists to wear ties, despite the fact that projectionists are never seen by the public. Not to mention that the tiny detail that the projectionists worked around giant, rapid spinning objects that a tie could get caught in. Management refused to reconsider the policy, and every single projectionist quit as a result. They then decided that the door people, of which I was one, who were always scheduled 7 days a week, would now only be scheduled on the weekends, and refused to reassign any of us to concessions on the weekdays so we wouldn't lose hours. As a result, almost every single door person quit, including me. After that, they started imposing impossible cleanliness standards on concessions. Things like requiring them to scrape popcorn kernels out of the cracks in the trim behind the popcorn machines. Concessions was there until 5 a.m. every night trying to meet their standards. So most of the concession people quit as a result. By my count, the theater went from a staff of about 50 to a staff of about 12 in 3 weeks. I swung by about a month after I quit and found out that the entire management staff had been fired, and replaced yet again by an entirely new one who actually seemed to be running the theater properly. My best guess is that the previous management had been told to whip the theater into shape, and they were idiots who had no idea how to effectively do that. I will never understand how some people get into positions of power. Oh freaking boy. I worked at Buffalo Wild Wings for a few years as a line cook. 2 different stores, same freaking pay. It was the same type of work where you would ask for a raise and they would scoff and say, yeah, me too. Anyways, I had been pretty dead set on quitting sooner or later. Our kitchen was very small. Most people ended up closing 4 to 5 days a week with doubles on the weekends, while still attending school full time as it was a college town. On Super Bowl freaking Sunday, a useless coworker who ducked out in the bathroom most of the shift finally stopped showing, and in response the managerial staff delegated closing to my pal Jay. Dude was a freaking delight to be around, hands down the best coworker ever. Jay had told them that due to being a full-time student, he no longer wanted to be first in, last out, which is 4 p.m. to 12 a.m., 1 a.m. on the weekends. They basically told him to go F himself, and that they don't have any more shifts for him. Immediately, me and one other cook walked to the office and quit on the spot. Buffalo Wild Wings lost 4 cooks on Super Bowl Sunday, leaving them with 7 full-time students on the schedule. It was a managerial crap show. You know, it stays like this when you quit, where you feel bad for your coworkers who you're leaving behind to cover all the work that you won't be doing anymore, but at the same time you're just like, that is not my problem anymore, you guys have fun, I am sick of this place. It's a pretty satisfying feeling. So I was hired by the new owners to replace the existing manager. I was under the impression that he was moving to another job somewhere. So after about 4 days I ask him where he's headed and if he's excited. He just looks blankly at me and says, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just training you as the assistant manager, right? The look I gave him must have been a great tip-off because he got up and walked into one of the new owner's offices. After about 30 seconds they were screaming at each other. Then he just storms out of the office, grabs his stuff, gives me the finger, and leaves. Over the next few days, I'm trying to calm things down with the employees. They're not faulting me, but now have a very bad taste in their mouths about the new ownership. Over about a 7 to 10 day period, my team shrank from 15 people down to 3. I hobbled along with that the best I could while we tried to hire new people, but the new owners were offering so little that we had trouble finding people. After 3 months or so, I had started to get fed up and overwhelmed, and when the owners started to get on me about missed deadlines, I'd had it. We were still only at 5 people, 2 of which were brand new and still training. They didn't allow me to refuse work or push deadlines out. They expected the same output as a 15-person team. So after my 3rd day in a row of being berated for missing a deadline that was impossible to make, I quit. There's a lot of people who like to complain that, bosses and CEOs get paid way too much for what they're worth. But when you see stories like this, you kind of have to hand it to the good ones. Because once you see what a bad boss is like, then you realize you want really good bosses, and maybe they do a little more than you think they do. When I was 16, I worked in the concession stand at a minor league baseball stadium. Minimum wage at the time was $5.15 an hour. This job paid $8, and it was always in the evening, so it was perfect work for a high school student. The only bad thing was our management was terrible. The main manager would throw toddler tantrums about once a shift over stupid bullcrap, like not ordering enough specific beer. She did the ordering. Or running out of pre-cut lemons for tea. One night the stadium was running a promotion, and it was incredibly busy, easily 2 to 3 times the normal volume of customers. We were all working our butts off, handling multiple roles, each with absolutely no downtime. Although we cleaned as we worked, nobody had a chance to do thorough cleaning for the whole shift because there was a never-ending horde of hungry baseball fans. The manager showed up 3 to 4 hours late, per usual, and throws the biggest freaking tantrum ever over the unswept floor. Finally, she announces, "Listen up, you lazy Fs. Minimal work gets minimal pay. Everybody is being paid minimum wage tonight because you slobs won't clean up anything." Both of our bartenders and the bar back quit on the spot, which caused a chain reaction. We all took off our aprons and hats to leave. She blocked the exit and was red in the face from screaming, so one of the cooks climbed out of one of the big serving windows where he served customers. So I did the same, and most of the staff followed. Bear in mind that this all happened in front of like 200 plus customers. Of course, my final paycheck got lost, so I had to file a wage theft complaint with the Texas Workforce Commission. Man, that's always a fear of mine when I leave a job kind of on not so great terms. I'm like, I really hope they at least send me the money I made. So I worked at Wendys, and one of the regional managers started running a store because they couldn't or wouldn't find new managers to replace the old ones. Well anyways, this guy practically ran the place into the ground. Before he started running the store, most everyone liked working there as it was a good environment. A few months after, a couple of people quit because of him, and one day I roll in at 9 to help open the store, and he comes out to my car as soon as I park. I was 15 minutes early, as usual, just sat in my car until 9, and he tells me, "Hey, I need you to start early because the 3 openers just quit on me." We managed to get the store open and had a number of people from other stores help run the place until the people from the next shift came in. A couple days later, I hear the full story of what happened from a coworker. The regional manager is supposed to be at the store at 7 or so, and the openers 30 minutes later. He didn't actually show up till 8:30, so when the openers, already pissed at being at work really early and not being on the clock, saw the regional manager roll in and knew it was going to be an awful shift, all decided they were done with him and just quit right there. So at least 6 people quit because of him by the time I left the place. Probably more left after me. I'd love to go to these businesses on days where everyone just quits, and it's just a complete mess, and you're just like, what is going on? So I did landscape construction. The cheap owner kept taking bigger and bigger projects while never hiring more help. We were all overwhelmed, stressed, and anxious. One of our foremen quit, and I followed suit a few days later. 2 more guys quit the next day. He was down 3 guys for the obscene amount of work he wanted to do. Of course, everything gets way behind schedule, but he's convinced it's not his fault at all. He went out of business less than a year later. I don't know why people think that you can just cut expenses and your income will still be the same. You have to spend money to make money, so if you just stop spending money, you're probably going to stop making money. So I was working for a very large IT company. Before the tech bubble burst, we had a meeting with our new director and the VP. They were tired of people complaining about things that should be changed at the job and how they managed people. So they sat around 200 of us down in our auditorium, and the director said she didn't want to hear any more complaints on how she was running things, and if we didn't like it then there was the door, and that there was no way we'd leave such a great job. Well, there was a mass exodus, and probably close to 50 people left within 2 months. She and the VP were reorged and given 0 reports. They were gone after a round of layoffs happened shortly after. Man, this kind of thing happens more than I thought. So new management. In a month, 4 kitchen staff quit, leaving me to be the only original kitchen staff hire from the previous manager. She completely changed the vibe of the workplace. No one was happy. No one felt like talking or listening to music or being friendly. It was robotic. Overbearing management who tries to micromanage you too much is pretty much the #1 reason that I usually quit jobs. I just wish more management would really just understand that being reasonable and just allowing people to, be people is a lot more productive than trying to force everyone to be robots. Well, that does it for all of the responses I pulled for this question. What about you guys? Have you ever had a mass exodus of a lot of people quitting a single job at once? I guess the closest story I have to this is that I worked at a place once that all of the employees knew that this company was doing terrible, like they were not profitable, and yet they kept like hiring more people. Like we had more coworkers than we could really use, and so we're all just like, what is going on? And then of course like a couple weeks after they hired a big batch of people, they came in and just laid a whole bunch of people off, including me, which I had been there for like 6 months. But they decided to keep somebody who like just barely started. So yeah, that was nice. And then of course after they laid a bunch of people off, a couple others quit in response to that. And so then I got a call the next day. They're like, hey, we're down more people than we can handle. Do you want to come back and work for us? And I'm like, no thanks. You guys are on your own. So I went and found another job at that time. Though probably the most messed up thing I can remember a company doing to me. So at one point I worked in this place where it was like there were 2 companies in the same building, but both companies were kind of linked in some way. They were both owned by the same person, so he just kind of ran both of them the same. They were both on like the same payroll and everything. But one year they gave out like Christmas bonuses. They just added on to everybody's paychecks. And I was on like the smaller company that only had like 3 people. So I saw a pretty big paycheck and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then they came to us and said, oh, sorry, we didn't mean to send Christmas bonuses to you guys, so we're going to be taking that out of your next paycheck. So I was just like, wow, that's probably the most messed up thing you could have done. Overall, it didn't turn out too bad. The paycheck with the bonus was like 50% bigger than usual, and then the next paycheck was maybe only like 20% smaller. So, I mean, I still came out ahead, I guess. I don't know really what happened in all of that. But I've worked a lot of jobs at a lot of different places over the years. Hopefully I can maintain YouTube as a job for a while, though with my current numbers, I'm definitely going to have to come up with something. I still don't know where this channel is headed, so be prepared for anything, honestly. But that does it for today, so thanks for watching.